Angel Reese is making the game of basketball better. I mean, look at all the eyes, Reeta, that we had on this game. 9.9 million folks wanted to see this battle. It was like a heavyweight fight, essentially, in women's basketball. And I'm just glad to be around to see this because I think the women's game has been growing. The game is there. And now with the NIL deals too, I think these athletes have been able to add more of the personalities and make a profit off of it. So shout out to the Bayou Barbie, Reeta.
Absolutely. I want to get into with the ratings that you mentioned. As we can see, 9.9 million. It is the most viewed NCAA Division I women's college basketball game ever. It is the most viewed college event over on ESPN Plus, whether it was men's or women. It beat such events as 3 of the 4 NCAA Elite 8 games. It beat the Daytona 500. It beat Alabama and Kansas State at the Sugar Bowl. It beat the Rose Bowl. It beat the Raiders and Steelers on Christmas Eve. And it also beat game 1 of the Astros and Phillies World Series. So that's how big this is. We no longer have an excuse, Kelsey, about women's sports being not important, because what we heard is, oh, they're second to men. They don't even consider it March Madness like they do men's basketball because they thought that the women's game would dilute the brand of March Madness. Well, now that's a lie. We have stats that shows that that's not true. We have players now that we can follow and that we can choose sides on who it is that we like. Oh, and the game feels like it's flowing much better than men's basketball as well. I watched the men's basketball game on Monday night. Well, I watched the first half. Let me say that. And I had to turn it off. I had to turn it off. I was bored. I was not excited about it. It became a blowout. And I found something else to watch. I did not feel that way in watching the women's championship game. And now there's too many things that's included in this now for you to ignore that people are into women's sports, particularly women's basketball. And it's time to give them the respect that they deserve, in my opinion.
You just said it. It's time to put some respect on the name of women's basketball. As you said, a lot of us watch the men's game. Some would call it a snooze fest. I mean, obviously, UConn, you can debate your mama, whoever you want to debate, if they're a blue blood or not. But all that to say, San Diego State, to me, Reeta, they just weren't up to par. They weren't up to competition. And so it just wasn't as good of a game. You want those back and forth games in the championship game. We watched the women. We watched LSU put up 102 points, folks. I mean, talk about an offensive game against one of the best basketball players in the country. Like you said, that game was so much more thrilling and exciting. And mind you, Reeta, they got us to do that at 3:30 p.m. on a Sunday. Like, I mean, that takes a lot to do that. Sundays are the days when those people are relaxing, when they're chilling, doing your laundry, doing your Yes, we brunch over here in Maryland, folks. But all that to say, Reeta, I think that just talks about the evolution of the women's game and where it is now and how these players are so important. I mean, already we're talking about the rematch between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I mean, we're excited about this. I think there's going to be so many new eyes on women's collegiate basketball. Luckily, me and you being in Maryland, we've got to see great women's basketball in the University of Maryland. But now I think folks are seeing it all across the country. And as you said, they beat out top events. I mean, they beat out MLS, Major League Soccer games. They literally beat out everything. I think now networks, too, are going to make sure that they are on prime time. I think now we have to talk about, Reeta, putting them in bigger arenas to play in, right? I mean, because the women's game, the ticket prices are going to be more expensive. I mean, there's so many different things that are going to just parachute off of what we saw, the greatness that we saw in the game. And I mean, we've had everybody talking about, Lil Wayne is offering mixtape tracks. I mean, we've got Lil Wayne out of a mini retirement. That's what the women's game is doing. That's no disrespect to the men's game that we watch. And, and of course, congrats to UConn. I mean, what they were able to do this year, truly magnificent and exciting. But I think we saw better men's games earlier in the tournament, right? We had the buzzer beater prior. That was exciting. But yeah, the finals game, I mean, nobody was really talking about it. That's why we're still having this conversation about Angel Reese, about LSU. And yes, that's why the Bayou Barbie merchandise is still continuing to sell.
And there's so many different other, contributors and components to this, right? Because you got Aaliyah Boston, and then you got Haley and Dawn Staley, and add the fact that these young ladies do not have to leave college right away. They have an extra year eligibility because of COVID, so they can stay an extra year to that. They have NIL deals that allows them to stay on the college level for as long as they can. And so it, to me, just does nothing but propel this women's basketball game. And I love what Caitlin Clark was saying, you know, on Outside the Lines on ESPN. She did an interview there, and she talked about, you know, how this has put this game on the map and how important it is for understanding how competitive women's basketball is. She also said she had no issue with what Angel had done. And I'm glad that she said that, because it should put to rest what was a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. It was a non-issue. It should put to rest everything that people have had to say the last couple of days about Reese's actions. I don't think that it was necessary. I think that a lot of grown adults had a lot of opinions about a young woman, a very young woman still in college, and speaking as if she's a grown adult, which is very weird to me, by the way. But ultimately, you know, if Caitlin's allowed to be her authentic self, so should Angel. And I'm glad that she spoke on that. And I'm glad that she said, hey, listen, this is a competitive sport. This is what we do. As a matter of fact, they were going back and forth at it when she was at Maryland a couple of years ago. This is not new for them. This is just new to y'all because you just showed up to the women's basketball party. That's it.
Exactly. That's what happens when you sleep on women's basketball. You haven't seen the competitors that these two have been. As you said, Angel Reese started at the University of Maryland. Her and Caitlin Clark were going at it then. That's what top athletes do. And as you said, I've had so many problems with some of the names that Angel Reese has been called. As you said, a 20-year-old sophomore, LSU University, a student athlete. And we've heard so many derogatory, nasty, negative comments against her. Enough is enough. And I honestly feel like apologies need to be put out there. You know, if I'm Angel Reese's mom, I'm having a lot of problems. I mean, Reeta, we're talking about, we heard who raised this child. I mean, really? Really? This is a competitive basketball game. I mean, she just gave us some of the best basketball that we've seen, from rebounding to the double doubles. I mean, she's gotten so many people on this bandwagon, even more so of watching women's sports and women's greatness. And Caitlin Clark, I think, is just saying, hey, if I don't take offense to it, I don't really understand what all the hoopla is about. I mean, I'm on the basketball court. She did that. If anything, hey, I'll be back next year and try to go back and compete for that title I was trying to do next year. But also, I think we have to talk about some of the nasty comments that were also said in that arena, Reeta. I mean, we've heard people talk about being in that arena, watching that game, and just hearing from fans racial comments. I have to say this, Reeta. Wake up, America. Race does matter in sports. We're not a post-racial society. People see Angel Reese, a beautiful, tall, 6'3", dark-skinned chocolate girl. And even though she's amazing and incredible, it's like, unfortunately, Reeta, some people can't look past that and just see she's an athlete. She is an athlete at the top and highest of levels. She makes her teammates better. There's so much praise about her. That's why Kim Mulkey, her head coach, sings her highest praises. And she's a sophomore. We have so much good basketball left. But what I will say, I'm even more excited, Reeta, about this propelling to the WNBA. We've got the WNBA draft next week. This talent is hopefully going there. You talked about Aaliyah Boston. She's projected to be the first pick. Going back to University of Maryland, you have Diamond Miller expected to be the second pick. And I think that's what we want. You know, don't just watch the women's basketball game for the championship. How can we continue to get these eyes on the WNBA game, keep the fans part of the professional game so we can also grow that league? I know we're going to talk about this later in the show, but especially now that the NBA, CBA talks about NBA players, Reeta, having that option, right, to invest as minority owners in the WNBA. I think this is just such an exciting time for women's sports. And if you're not on now, you better get on now. And these NIL deals, I'm telling you, every company should be calling these ladies up, because now is the time to make the money.
Absolutely, because they have really progressed and grown the sport. And I think that that's something that should be said here and you know, celebrated. This is really a big feat for them. And to be able to probably see them again and potentially back where we started last year, you know, go over into 2023, 2024 season. I'm excited. I have not been excited about like when I can view another women's college basketball game. I don't think ever. But now there's storylines. Now there's competition. Now that we have names and players that we can identify with, that makes a complete difference for all of this. And that's the part that I'm extremely excited about. I really hope that Angel continues to be her authentic self. And look, I hope Caitlin does too. I have a problem with nothing that neither one of these ladies did. When it's in the battle, you're going to do what you're going to do. It is what it is. And they were just out there having fun, being competitive. We have no problem when Steph Curry lullabies people to sleep or when anyone else does these things. Don't allow your thoughts on women in general to affect the competitiveness about women in sports. They should be allowed to do the exact same things, and they should be able to have fun in doing so, in winning a championship the way that LSU did against Iowa.
Exactly. Ladies can trash talk too, all right? And we do it a lot. If you play the competitive sport, it happens. It's why you want to get back on the basketball court. It's why if you played basketball, especially in the city, you have to earn the right to stay on the court. And a lot of things are said about that. But as you said, Reeta, if anything, we're looking forward to college basketball next season. All of us are going to be waiting for them schedules to drop. We're trying to look at when these matchups happen. And we're going to have so many more fans, you know. All of us, we're going to be traveling to games in packs. I mean, I think it's going to be really fun arenas now to watch these women play and compete at the highest level. And even more so, think about the young girls now. They're going to watch them and say, I want to be like them too. And fill these arenas and have them supporting me.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.